and welcome back to the Real Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Real Conversations is a podcast for those dedicated to doing hard things and living a meaningful life. This belief is perhaps best encapsulated by a quote from the great Teddy Roosevelt. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how the strong man stumbles, nor the doer of deeds could have done them better. No, the credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena. With that being said, welcome back to another episode of Real Conversations. And I would like to amend the man in the arena to the man in the pain cave, because today we have Matt Magnuson, fresh off his 100-mile ultramarathon. How are you doing, Matt?
I am doing awesome. How are you guys doing today?
Good.
Awesome.
We got John here too.
Yeah, I'm in the background.
I feel like if you went through and looked at each episode, the amount of time just like, oh, by the way, John's here.
Yeah, I just kind of sit and listen. I'm the audience here.
Yeah. So I alluded to the pain cave, and we'll get into more of the details of it, but I had done my ultramarathon attempt back in July, and just the amount of fatigue mentally that hurting consistently just every minute for every hour compounds is ridiculous. And I have no doubt that's what you went through this past weekend.
Yeah. It was funny. You expect the pain cave at some point, but you hope that you can delay it as much as possible, through preparation and through proper pacing, and then just race day maintenance, stopping and stretching occasionally and staying on top of your nutrition and all of that. And I really was able to delay it as long as I could. It really didn't start kicking in big time till about mile 81. So I'm very thankful, because the longest I'd ever ran up to this weekend was I did 100K, so 62 miles. So, and I remember how I felt after that. And I hit the pain cave in that one at about mile 43, 44, and that last 17 whatever miles was a struggle. So thinking, okay, I've got to add 38 more miles to that. Where's it going to be? So very, very blessed. I think that the training plan that I had, the recovery plan, strength and conditioning that I did leading up really helped prepare me to push that off as far as I can.
Yeah, this episode is very well timed, because last week's episode I released was with Carolina, and she did a research study on ultramarathon runners, which there's very few research studies actually out there. It's one that I participated in last year. And so she talked about the results of her study, and it came back that she did all of these different tests before and after the race leading up to it. And she was able to conclusively say that whether or not you complete an ultramarathon is completely dependent upon your mindset. There's not one set of person who has a different physical ability that will enable them to get to the finish line. If you're looking at timing, sure, it could be more of a physical element, but she was able to show through her science that an ultramarathon is 100% mindset, which is just incredible.
Yeah, I think so as well. There's one thing that I went into with the race that a mindset that I picked up from Courtney DeWalter. I heard her on somebody's podcast a while back, just talking about how just coming to peace with being in the pain cave. Okay, it's here. I'm at peace with it, and I just got to keep going. And that's really what it was. And I'm fortunate again that it came up in mile 81, and so I'm at the I'm 80% done with the race at that point. And I know that at that point, if I want a power hike, I'm looking at the time. I know that I'm going to clear the cutoff for sure, unless I was telling people, my pacers, the last couple pacers that I had, I said, unless there's aliens or the rapture or just some sort of freak accident, there's no way I don't finish this. And I think having that confidence level also kind of helped carry me along as well.
Mm-hmm. Matt, what did your training look like for this?
Yeah. So during the week, I would run, 3 or 4 days during the week, plus then a long Saturday run. The runs during the week weren't usually very long. The most was usually around 8, but typically 3 to 6. Some of those runs were just at an Orange Theory Fitness workout. I'd get 3.5 miles on the treadmill in that portion of the class, and that's actually where I did most of my speed training. And then fit in that Saturday long run. And actually, several of my training runs were actually Friday long runs. One of the things about ultramarathons that you hear from everybody is that that overnight part is pretty sketchy. You've been on your feet all day. By the time it got dark, I was already, up 14, 15 hours, moving for 12 of that. And, and then as time goes on, you just get more tired and more tired. and you don't see anything except for just whatever you see and the headlamp, and mentally things can get really difficult. So I did several of my runs where I would start on Fridays. So I'd work all day, start running at like 5 or 6 o'clock at night. So I was already kind of exhausted. Some of these runs were in August as well. So I'm starting when it's 100 degrees. So by the time it is dark, man, I'm already just drenched, sweaty, and I'm tired and already ready to be done. And now it's time to run, 9 more hours. So what I like to do is just a 12-hour run as a long training run. So I fit several of those in, not every week, sprinkle them out about every third or fourth week. And in between do, 30 to 35 mile runs. But those overnight runs, it wasn't about pace or speed or anything. It was more, let's get 12 hours on my feet when I'm already a little bit tired, not starting out 100% the way I would on race day.
That is a really interesting strategy, because if I think back to my training, it was more probably of an average of like 8 to 10 miles every day with like maybe a 20 on a weekend if it's like a big week for me. And you're only running 3 to 4 days a week, but you're doing like a 30 or 35 mile run on the weekend or during that night period. That is a very interesting strategy that I'd not come across.
Well, and part of that strategy too is I was still working out in addition to the running. So, I mentioned Orange Theory Fitness. I'll do a little bit of strength and conditioning throughout the week, which is, very, very helpful. But, I'm a big believer in flexibility and range of motion. So, I do that with DDP yoga throughout the training process. I would do at least 3 hours a week, but try to get 5 in if I could. I would have one class a week that I would actually teach. And then the rest I chose specifically around workouts that I know that were really good for strengthening my core, but in particular strengthening, my hamstrings, my calves, and my quads. And I really, especially for that race, I didn't pick the flattest race to do my first 100 miler on. So I think of all the 100 milers in this area, I did the Heartland 100. I believe Heartland 100 has the second most incline of any of the races and ultra races in Kansas. So, I knew I was up against that and needed to have that lower body strength to get up those hills.
So take me to race day. The night before, could you sleep at all?
It was hard. I wanted to get 9 hours sleep. I did get about 8.
Really?
Yeah. So I actually started modifying my sleep schedule a couple days before, going to bed earlier and getting up earlier, just so that I could fall asleep as early, because I knew that I was going to have the race. That I don't want to call it anxiety. I think it's more, the night before Christmas kind of thing, So yeah, I laid down. It took me about an hour and a half to fall asleep. But yeah, got a nice little Airbnb, 10 minutes from the race start, so that I didn't have to travel out there in the morning. And, I have a amazing wife who, Rachel did just such a good job running some logistics behind the scenes. We started preparing for the race, in terms of all the supplies that I would need 2 weeks out, had it all laid out, had all my nutrition completely planned out. So I went to bed. There was a lot of cooking that she did, overnight, in that Airbnb. So having her along and not having to mess with that, also really helped just, clear out some mental bandwidth and get me more emotionally and mentally prepared for the race.
You sleeping 8 hours the night before is incredible, because I can never sleep. I get like 3 hours the night before a race. I'm just sitting there with the jitters.
Yeah, one thing, earlier this year I did 11 marathons in 11 weeks, and I made some observations around sleep and pacing and just overall race day, how I felt. And one thing that I noticed was, there were some races that I only had 6 or 7 hours of sleep. There was a couple that I got 8, and there was one race in particular that I got a solid 9 hours of sleep. and I'll tell you, you look at the pacing and just the way I felt throughout those races, especially, past mile 20, much difference. And also the way I felt after the race and the recovery was also quicker, just by getting a little bit of more sleep on the front end.
Yeah. I just always sit there thinking like, oh my gosh, what did I get myself into?
Right.
So you wake up that next morning. Take us through kind of how the race progressed, how it started off for you.
Yeah, so it started really smooth, except for the wind. It was so terribly windy that morning. It was around 22 miles an hour with gusts up to 38. But, I'll tell you, when you're out there in those Flint Hills, the wind just kind of bounces off the hills, so I never felt that I had much of a tailwind. I might have had a tailwind maybe 6 or 7 miles of the 99, and I swear I ran, the rest of the race straight on in the wind. We might have had 4 or 5 hours where it was a little bit calmer, but it was blowing around pretty hard the whole day. So yeah, just watching, and didn't get much of a sunrise at all. So it was pretty cloudy, almost overcast. So which made it a good, comfortable temperature. I never got to that point where I was sweating a lot, so hydration stayed really strong. And it, on the race day itself, mentally I break apart a race before I go into it. So I broke this race apart in a couple different ways. First off, I didn't want to just look at my watch. All right, 1 mile, 99 more to go. 2 miles, 98 more to go. I really said it as, hey, I'm going to run 5 miles 20 times today. I know what 5 miles feels like. I know how long it normally takes at different paces, and just really looked at each, how I was pacing every 5 miles and trying to maintain that with consistency, and kind of averaging out the ups and downs with the hills. Started out strong, with a little praise and worship, and which got me very mentally strong in the race, and had some nice chit chat conversations with people. When you're early in the race, it's kind of interesting the conversations you have. Like one of the guys is like, "Oh man, I didn't like the sunrise we got this morning," and I just commented back to him. I said, "Well, we got another one tomorrow. We're still going to be out here." And then I thought to myself, how crazy does that sound? I'm going to be still running till then.
Oh, man.
It's just crazy. So you start off, what are you eating?
So my nutrition plan was, so I like using the Mertens energy gels. So I was taking those about every hour and a half to 2 hours at a base. And then I had... my body processes kind bars really well. So that's probably what I consumed the most of throughout the course of the race. I probably had at least 10, maybe 12. I know a lot of people like to go with the more carby type of things, lots of chips and bread and stuff like that out on the race. After a while, that just doesn't work for me. So I kind of start more on the saltier side and the protein side. And then about every time I'd see my crew, I would try to have some sort of small meal. Most of the time, it was a bacon sandwich.
Oh, so good.
That's it.
So yummy on race day.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I did something similar. I did bacon, egg, and cheese sandwiches. They're delicious, especially when you get that tired or when you're running that much and you're depleting your sodium levels that much. Like the salt in the bacon itself is so good.
Yeah, it definitely is.
And Matt, was there respective aid stations for you guys? I know when you did your 100 attempt, there was no aid stations.
No.
Yeah, he went for the really crazy race. So yeah,
you had aid stations?
Yeah, we had aid stations. So there was about 4 or 5 unmanned ones with just water, and then there was about 3 or 4 that were manned throughout the course. So I was seeing an aid station, at the most probably 7 miles, sometimes 4 or 5 miles, and then there were 5 or 6 spots that I was able to meet up with my crew.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I'm thinking about how nice that would have been. So you're saying about every 4 miles you were able to hit some sort of aid station if you just wanted water or you wanted to grab a bite or something?
Yes. Uh-huh.
Nice. Okay. So did you eat much bananas, or what were you doing for electrolytes, potassium, sodium?
So I stay away from all fruits on race day.
Really?
Yeah. And I've noticed that if I have a GI issue on a long run, most of the time there was fruit involved. I eliminated fruit. I haven't had a GI issue since then. So I'm like, all right, well, it works. But for electrolytes, first of all, I was taking a salt at least every hour. During the daytime when it was a little bit warmer, I'd maybe take 2 in an hour. And then in addition to, the water that I was using, I found over the summer during my training that my body really handled the Gatorade. I think they have some sort of electrolyte drink now that you can get them at Quick Trip or any convenience store. But I started using those because during my training runs, a lot of the times, I didn't have an aid station. I was just running, from one side of Wichita to the other, or to Derby and back. So, running a quick trip, get one of those. But typically in the past, I have a hard time getting the sports drinks down after later in the race. Just sweet doesn't work for me, and I can drink those things all day. So kept me well good and equipped.
Have you ever tried Element, LMNT?
I don't think I have.
Okay, that's my favorite go-to for electrolytes. Really enjoyed that. It's the packets that you just kind of pour into the water.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
So were you wearing a Camel pack, or how were you getting your water?
Yeah, I wear an orange mud vest that has two 24-ounce bottles in the back.
Okay. So what, bottles, like you handheld bottles or like a hose?
They're handheld bottles.
Nice.
Which is also nice, when you have a crew, because you can have extra bottles and they can have them completely iced and ready to go for you, and just hot swap them out when you see them.
Yeah. So you know better than I do. Take me through the race and kind of some of the pivotal moments for you that stick out.
I think one of the most pivotal moments was overcoming some soreness in my calf very early. Around 22, 23, my upper left calf was just in horrible pain. And I'm thinking to myself, I got 75 more miles to go. By the way, I've never even ran 75 miles. So, I had to first mentally block that out. I'm like, because at first, my mind's like, well, what if this gets worse? What if I'm going to have to DNF, and what's that look like? And when would my next race be? And I'm like, you know what? I got to stop those negative thoughts. And so it was from there. Just get to my crew. Was coming up in a couple miles, and I just hit the Theragun really hard and massage stick, and got back on the road. Felt a little bit better. And what was interesting about this race is the crew access points were really kind of either really close to each other or really far apart. So they were either 17 miles apart.
Oh my gosh.
Or like 6.
Yeah.
So my next stop was 6. And so I stopped again on that one. I actually sat down on a chair that time and really hit the massage gun for about 2-3 minutes on each calf. And when I got back up and started running again, it was gone. So just being able to go through that adversity and troubleshoot my way out of it and not have a problem with it was pivotal. I think the next big thing was hitting mile 50. Any ultra that I do, mentally, there's something about having fewer miles in front of you than what you have behind you. And there's kind of a relief. And I knew that if my body felt strong at 50, that I was going to be okay. Especially, I wanted to get, the cutoff time to get to the turnaround was 14 hours. So I wanted to get there in at least 13 hours with stretch goal of 12. Got there in just about 12 hours and 15 minutes, I believe. So just
awesome.
Just right outside of that, and had a nice burger. Oh, spectacular! and actually, when I turned around there and started moving, my pace was really strong. I mentioned my calf issues that I was having in the 20s, and even in the early 30s. I ran my miles in the 40s, and my 40 through 50 and 50 through 60. Stronger than I did my 30 between 25 and 40.
Oh, wow.
And I felt a lot better, felt a lot more energy, was hitting the hills good. So then, the next thing was really getting to 62 miles. Because that, now we're in uncharted territory, and can I get there and feel much better than the last time I've been there? And when I got there, I just felt unbelievably good. What was interesting too is from mile 60 to mile 80, my fastest paces felt like they were when I was going uphill. At that point, running downhill was feeling a little bit more difficult, but going uphill, I felt like I was hitting those hills pretty strong, which was very encouraging. And when I got to 75, I felt better than I needed to be, or that I thought I would at 75. And that's, I've heard some ultra runners say 75 is where it really begins. So just to be at that point and feel the way I did, I knew at that point that it was going to be mostly power walking. I'd been doing intervals up to that point, but the intervals were getting slower. My pace was getting slower on the intervals, and I was getting really comfortable with my power walk pace, where it was actually moving faster than most of my running was doing at that point, especially up the hills. And I felt like I was exerting less energy and impact on my body. And so it was just helping me stay strong.
What were the intervals you're doing?
I started with 2-1s, but then there was the hill exception, starting out with where it was like we're gonna walk the ups, or power hike the ups, run the downs and jog the flats, and so that kind of threw the 2-1s out of whack very frequently because that course was just constantly up, constantly down. But it was really effective. I used that 2-1 throughout my training when I was doing my super long training runs of 50 miles, and it just felt so unbelievably good after the training runs that I felt that okay, let's do this late in the race, and it's gonna, because in the past I would do kind of longer intervals. I'd start out the race, and I'm going to not even walk the first 10, 20 miles, and then I'll take a walking recovery, and then maybe I'll do 10 1s and then maybe 8 2s. But bringing in the 2 1s really early, I think paid off.
In 2 1s, meaning run 2, walk 1.
Yes.
Yep. Just for the audience there. So if you're hitting mile 75, that kind of pivotal moment, is that when the sun's starting to come up the next day?
Oh no, we still had a long way to go at that point.
So it was still nighttime.
75 was around, I'd say 1 o'clock in the morning. Probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're making good pace.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then 75 is when I switched out a pacer, and this is where things kind of start going downhill in the race. All right. So actually, let me back up. There were only a couple little hiccups throughout the race, but one of them kind of had a ripple effect. So. So we had my crew had a nice big SUV out there, and there's it's a gravel course, lots of sharp rocks. They blew a tire.
Oh no!
So and that was earlier. That was somewhere before I hit 42 miles, but then later they blew another tire and didn't have a spare.
Oh my gosh! Oh no!
Right, so they had to consolidate from like a big expedition to like an Explorer, so much smaller, and so they tried to make sure they got everything that they could because not everything would fit, and they forgot my caffeine. It was just overlooked, So I can see where it accidentally happened. So
it was intentional.
No, you're right. But hey, I mean that's part of what we do, with running ultras. It's not just running; it's also complex problem solving on the go. And so, I just had to. I was mad for about 2 minutes, and I'm like, all right, well, you can't change anything with this. But throughout my training, I had when I was doing those overnight runs, I really tested running with cans of coffee, just the flavored like Starbucks or Black Rifle, whatever you get, at the Quick Trip, and just drink one of those every hour and a half, 2 hours, gives a nice jolt and gives me that energy. So I knew that I was going to especially need it after 12, 18, whatever hours, so yeah, when I asked for the can is when I found out that they didn't have it.
Oh,
so
because you'd probably waited till you're like, okay, I'm going to hold off on the caffeine, and then as soon as you ask, and they didn't have it.
Yeah, bingo. So I just set into the reality that we're going to have to just try other things, keep awake. And unfortunately, I was doing really, really good up until 75. I was getting a little bit tired, but feeling strong. 75 is where the fatigue just really started kicking in, and then that's also when some unexpected moisture arrived in the air. So so the forecast said no rain all weekend. In fact, it said that the wind was going to stop at 6 o'clock, and yeah, it didn't. So and it wasn't like a hard rain; it was like a thick mist. But at this point in the race, I'm not moving as fast. So, I went back and looked at my heart rate afterwards, and, during the daytime when I have my fastest pace, that heart rate's somewhere between 140, 150 most of the time. Pace slows down. I'm still, in the 130s. At that point, I'm around 120. So I'm just not getting as warm while I'm getting wet at the same time. So it was just, kind of the combination of the two, just making me, much colder than I needed to be and wet, which I didn't have a rain jacket at the time. So I was really feeling it, but the fatigue started kicking in. And then we got up to mile 81, and that's where the pain cave just really kicked its way in. So I had, so at that time, my friend Ashley Nicole, who's a very experienced ultra runner, she was my pacer, and we're just going up this hill, moving very slowly. and I doze off. And I catch myself doze off, and I just kind of shake it off. And at this point, I'm also hallucinating a little bit. You know, I saw some kangaroos out in the field. Bet you guys didn't know this.
Is awesome.
We have a lot of those in Kansas.
Yeah, all over, especially the Flint Hills. Tourist destination. Go see it. And I saw bobcats. And then I kept just having this vision of the city that we ran through that we never ran through because there's absolutely no cities on this course. There's like 5 houses and lots of cows. But yeah, I just kept dozing off, and luckily we only had to get to 83, which was going to be the final time I'd see the crew. But there was also a aid station. Fortunately, the aid station had enough coffee to fill 1 cup, but not anything more. I got there at the right moment. So at that point, I sat in the crew truck and just knew that, hey, it's going to be a little bit sketchy. But I thought if I give myself like 15 minutes off my feet, I'll probably feel a little bit better. Let this coffee kick in, and so yeah, we got out there, and for the next 3-4 miles, my pace actually picked up pretty good. I was hitting the hills very strong. My splits were, better than my splits, 83 through 87 were better than 81 and 82. So, that was good. But then the coffee wore off, and it started getting colder. And I'm just tired. It's, at this point, 4 a.m, and just, It was, I don't know what was worse, the pain I was feeling at that time, or the cold, or the tiredness. Like it was all 3 at one time, and just kind of fighting through, managing all, which was impossible. But I was and luckily I saw my crew so that I was able to change into some warmer clothes, but honestly, I had 3 layers on. I probably should have had 4 or 5 because, once we got a few miles away from the crew and it started cooling down a little bit more, I was in a constant state of shiver, and that shivering did not end the rest of the race. Jeez. It was just continually constant. And there was, the next couple hours, I probably dozed off another 10 times.
Yeah.
And it was weird too, because it was always just for like 1 or 2 seconds. But, and when I woke up, I knew that it was only like 1 or 2 seconds, because obviously I didn't fall down on the ground or run into a tree or something. But I'd always have a quick little dream, and it would be, and they usually involve somebody saying something to me. But even in that short amount of time, I couldn't remember, like, who was that was just talking, and what did he say? And then, I'd run another minute or 2, and then it would happen again. And, so we just had to kind of go through that. And I just kept looking at the watch thinking, I just got to get through till sunrise. Once I can see things around me, and I'm not just looking through, that's the other thing. It stayed overcast the whole time, and there was no moon. So Flint Hills, it was just the darkest of dark for so long, the most I've ever been encapsulated in that much darkness for any given period of time in my entire life. But that's actually what happened. The sun came up. I felt a lot better. And so I kind of dropped the let's stay awake thing. That wasn't as hard for me at that point. Hit an aid station with at mile 82-ish, or excuse me, 92-ish. And they had Coke. They were out of coffee, but chugged a couple of Cokes, and
nice.
that kept me awake for the rest of the race. But then it was just like, oh boy, we got to manage through this cold and this tiredness, man. So there was a, as soon as I could get inside and just get out of the cold, I didn't want to be outside the rest of the day. As soon as I got in the car to go home, it's like, let's crank the heater up to 80. Sorry, honey, you're just gonna melt on the way home because Daddy's freezing.
Jeez, yeah, little things like that. Like they call it the pebble in the shoe. Over a amount of time and distance, like you being cold, shivering is A, going to physically exhaust you, and B, just the mental struggle of that is just terrible.
Yeah, and it was, I think one of the things too that was hurting me on the energy is I didn't have any GI problems, didn't get sick, none of that. My hydration was really good, didn't ever feel that I was dehydrated. But late in the race, everything that I was trying to eat just felt like I just finished a rich piece of chocolate cake, and now I'm sitting down to eat another one. Mm. And it wasn't making me sick. I couldn't get it down. So it was just trying to force feed myself. And okay, instead of eating a Kind bar, I'm going to eat a bite of a Kind bar. And in 20 minutes, try it again, and just eating those small bits. But I really think from a nutrition standpoint, I was probably not where I needed to be, especially the last 15 miles.
So when you were walking and you were falling asleep and you were by yourself, what was the prevailing thought that kind of got you back up and going rather than just saying, I'm going to call it the next aid station?
Well, so I wasn't alone at that point because I had the pacer, but I just remember at one point there was a hill and I just couldn't stay awake and I just wasn't moving. I was hurting. Like everything was just hitting me at one time. And I said the words to my pacer, man, I don't know if I can do this. And as soon as I said it, I'm like, get rid of that right now. You know, I'm like, I'm not going to say that again. Like you can get, you know, and again, it went back to unless the rapture comes or aliens or a major injury, all I got to do is keep moving, and I'm gonna make the cutoff. I've got plenty of buffer time in front of me. The cutoff time was 30 hours. So my primary goal is just be under 30 hours. I had a stretch goal, 28, and you know, anything above that was a super stretch. And I don't know. I just had to block out all negativity and just get in that zone and just be at peace with knowing that. All right, you know, looking down at the clock and saying, all right, it's 5 a.m, so at the pace right now, we're going to finish about 10:30. I got 5.5 more hours, and just knowing there's nothing I can do about it but finish or quit. And I don't want to quit, so we're just going to finish and just block out anything otherwise.
I love that. Why did you decide to sign up for a 100-mile ultramarathon?
A multitude of reasons. You know, it really traces back originally to my car accident in 2018, and the journey coming back from that. You know, at that point, I'd never ran more than a marathon, did 7 of them, and really thought for me, 100 miles was impossible. Well, you know, and when I had to adjust my attitude throughout my recovery, because I, you know, went in some dark negative places. One of the things I did was just start setting goals, and they weren't goals about getting better specifically. It was goals. If you get better from this, what are you going to do? And so, you know, I just started writing down all kinds of crazy stuff. You know, I mean, I wrote this down, doing, you know, the double at Pikes Peak ascent, running 1,000 days in a row, and just started. And I even wrote down non-running things, like even crazy pie in the sky things. Like I wrote down, one day I'm going to give a TED Talk, and one day I'm going to be on the Joe Rogan show. Now, I don't know how I'm going to get on those things, but I do know that people that do a TED Talk or get on the Joe Rogan show, they have to do something pretty significant that involves a lot of effort and be one of the top few at whatever it is they do. And I don't even know what that will be, but just setting that goal means, all right, well, let's work backwards. That might not be for another 15 years. So what are we doing today to advance that? I may never be on the Joe Rogan show, but you know what? I'm going to live my life as if I'm trying to accomplish goals and continue to grow and continue to push myself as if that will happen someday.
You got to have something to strive for.
Yeah.
Like to me, one of the best feelings in the world is progress. Like I am working towards something. Who knows if I'm going to achieve it? But the feeling of making progress is just so addicting to me.
Yeah. Yeah, it absolutely is. And then there's also the, I had doctors tell me, hey, you're probably not even going to run a marathon. You know, you need to think about this. You know, you need to think about even what your fitness routine looks like in the future. And so there's kind of a part of me that gets really motivated when somebody tells me I can't do something. I'm like, all right, well, hold my protein shake. I got.
That's awesome. So I want to talk about the gear here for a moment. What type of shoes were you wearing?
So I was running Ultra Lone Peak 6s.
I've never heard of those.
Oh, they're awesome. They're one of the top trail shoes. So they, I like wearing minimalist shoes. These are a little bit thicker than I'd like, but perfect for, running trails and especially for running on gravel roads the whole day. Don't get me wrong, I still felt a lot of pointy rocks all day long. I was scared to look at my feet when I got done running, but what's nice about them is they're built very similar to a minimalist shoe in the sense that they have a very wide toe box, and that they don't have any lift in the back. So your foot is flat, although with a little bit more cushioning than the traditional minimalist shoes. And it has a rock plate in it. So very, very, can't imagine what life would have been like without that.
That's very fitting.
Yeah.
Were you listening to anything?
So I listened to, I started out the race silent, then moved to some praise and worship music. And then after that, a little bit of podcast. But, once I got my pacer, I didn't listen to anything. And actually, some of my solo run, I just kind of enjoyed the day. And, there's, the one thing about running ultras versus, signing up for a city, whatever race is that you're going to see these people all day long. They're going to pass you. You're going to pass them. You might know a few of them beforehand. You might know a few of them by the time you're done. And, just getting to, run next to somebody for a couple of miles, have that chit chat moment, or, spend a little bit of extra time, thanking the people at the aid station, those types of things. Just being a little more present with the race itself, I guess, just kind of motivated me to not listen as much. But don't get me wrong, there's times that I definitely needed to listen. From, doing a 100-miler, you can go hours without seeing people too. It gets kind of lonely out there. So luckily, the lonely parts, it was light outside.
When were you allowed to have a pacer?
42 and a half.
Okay. Yeah, I didn't get one until 50, so that was about 11 hours for me. And I struggled the whole time, and I hated being alone, and so I definitely had to do podcasts and music.
Yeah, I think that's where the practicing, the doing those 50-mile runs really helped. I did run some of those with others, but I intentionally didn't invite people to come with me on a few of them because I wanted to have a 12-hour run by myself and practice that isolation while movement.
That's smart. I'd never done that because prior to that, I'd done the 50-miler with my cousin, and then 60 with him, and then this was the next one by myself for the first 12 hours. I think that's what really got to me in the beginning.
Yeah, I think maybe you need few long solo runs and get used to being by yourself.
I think I need to do it. It sounds like it's on the docket.
At night.
Yeah, at night.
No headlamp. So did your watch battery last the whole time?
It did. Yeah, it was my first run with this watch, so I was, kind of curious if it would. But I have a Garmin Fenix 6 Solar.
Okay.
And what's weird is I've ran with it a lot during the daytime, and it seemed like it didn't charge a lot, this thing, I had it running for, almost 29 hours. And when I finished, it had over 40% battery life.
Wow. Jeez. Okay.
Yeah.
I got to talk to you about your settings because I have the Garmin Fenix 7 and mine died at like hour 20.
Oh, I've got a hack, I heard. So I read somewhere that if you turn off where it measures your steps,
okay,
that step measurement thing uses quite a bit of battery power.
Okay. I'll have to look into that then. Yeah, cause I specifically got it because it said that it'll do it's for ultra running. It'll last like 30 hours and then it just died at 20.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's a bummer.
Yeah, it was quite the bummer.
I mean, you got to show it off on Strava, right? Because if your race isn't on Strava, it never happened.
Right?
Exactly right.
I love Strava. I love checking in on my people, seeing them run. So we talked about shoes, camel pack, water, headphones. Did you use trekking poles?
I brought some, and when I got to that aid station at mile 83 and had 17 left, I'm like, okay, let's break out the trekking poles. And that's when I learned very quickly that I should practice with trekking poles because it was a hot mess. And after about a quarter of a mile, I'm like, I think we should run back to the car, give this to the crew. And my pacer's like, I'll just carry him for you.
Yeah.
So that's a good pacer because he had him for quite a few hours. But I think that is something that I will practice. Fortunately, I was able to get through it without it. But I think maybe it would have helped on some of those uphills late in the race. And so we'll practice and maybe incorporate it on the next one.
So what's next for you, Matt?
So I'm going to do Kansas Ultra Society has their 6/12 24-hour race every year. That's in South Wichita. It's on a 2.1 mile loop at the Cessna Activity Center. It's a great place to really I think for people to have their first ultra. I did my first 50K out there, but you can do the 6, the 12, the 24. I would really like to do the 24. We're going to listen to my body. That's what I'm signed up for. But if I need to pull back to the 12, I'll do the 12. And then I'm going to take a few months off for winter conditioning and strengthen some areas, rehab some areas. And then then figure out what next year looks like. The only thing that I have planned, locked in for sure next year is the 4x4x48 challenge.
Nice.
And
Love
then,
it.
yeah, that'll be fun. That's always a fun weekend, and supports, here locally, the 4x4x48 that we do supports ICT SOS, which is a great cause as well. And I'm going to do the Pikes Peak Marathon. I did the double a couple years ago where you do the ascent on Saturday and then do the marathon on Sunday. And I've been very curious since doing the double what my marathon time could have been if I didn't run up the mountain the day before. Because when I showed up at the starting line, I was already shot, right?
Yeah.
So my goal is to shave at least an hour off of my marathon time.
Nice. And for those that don't know, when you say 6, 12, and 24, that's last man standing, meaning you're running for. No, that's whoever runs the furthest in that time period. Yeah.
So it's a 2.1 mile loop. So if you're on the 6 hours, you just run for 6 hours or 12 or 24 respectively. And each time that you come in, you wear, a chipped bib. So it clocks your laps every time that you run around. And it's really a competition to see, who gets the most laps during that duration.
When is it?
It is the second weekend of November.
Oh, it's coming up quick.
That's really quick.
It's coming up real quick.
You guys signing up?
I think I'll be out of town.
I don't know.
Dang. Yeah, that'd have been fun.
What's cool about that race for new people is that you have an aid station every 2 miles.
Right.
So
that's so nice.
Yeah. So because of the Cessna Activity Center, it's a really nice setup because they have like this big open room that's an aid station, and you can set up chairs or even a cot if you need to take a nap or just need some time off your feet. They've got a massage therapist there. They've got bathrooms instead of having to find a tree or find a porta potty. So that's very nice. And they do a good job of supplying the food. And then, your car is right there in the parking lot. And since, it's not a huge event and a nice sized parking lot that goes right next to the course, I also use my truck as an aid station to have, because with any ultra, you're kind of limited to what they supply, and they might have some amazing stuff like Nutella quesadillas. Those are my favorites. But you're also used to what you're training with, right? And if they don't have that, so I like to bring my own for that event. But it's very well done, and it's kind of a social event because since it's on that closed loop, you just see the same people, dozens and dozens of times all day.
That's fun. What I want to do is a last man standing. That seems to me like I love the competition aspect to that. Of it's literally who's going to be the last one out here that's still going.
Yeah, there's one up in at Lake Wilson in April. I think it's called. I forgot what it's called, but it's one of like the backyard ultra format where you run 4 miles under an hour, and you can take whatever break you need until the next hour starts. And
is that in Kansas?
Yeah, it's about 2.5 hours from here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
I'll have to look at it.
Yeah, you should.
Nice. So I saw you walk in. You're looking pretty good. How are you recovering?
I'm recovering good. I'm recovering fast. I would actually say the thing that's driving me the most nuts in my recovery is sleep. I haven't been able to fall asleep. It's been a process of sometimes 3-4 hours a night to fall asleep. Heard that's common. Some of my friends that have done hundreds have said that as well, and that it'll kind of iron itself out. So we're looking forward to that. But in terms of my body, no injuries, no blisters, no chafing.
No blisters, no chafing?
0 blisters.
Did you even run?
Wow.
I know, right? Like it was like when I got done with the run and got in the car, it was going to be or actually when I got home, the great reveal. Let's take the shoes and socks off and see what's down there. And it was just a bunch of dirt, man. No, no blisters, all 10 toenails. So I was very, very fortunate for that. So just now it's just letting those muscles recover. But I've done 3 cryotherapy sessions since I've been back. I've also had a Supa Gluta IV, which is high dosage glutathione, which is an amazing supplement for rebuilding muscle tissue after something like this, and also just give me some nutrient. I think that was a big part of it. I got up, on Monday feeling almost, kind of similar to how I felt after COVID, where I'm just tired and drained and just need a little bit of a boost. So getting an IV, I just felt 25% better instantly. And those 3 cryo sessions have helped. And then I've done about 3-4 hours of compression therapy as well. So and continue to wear compression therapy sleeves on my calves. So each day I'd say there's been just a significant jump that, I feel pretty good about working out this weekend.
How often is it effective, or what is the max benefit of cryo like in a week? Like with ice bath, I know that after 11 minutes is kind of negligible benefits. How often can you do cryotherapy each week?
You can do it as many times as you want. Really twice a day is the most that you want to do it. And then you can do it all 7 days a week.
So it won't max out at a certain point?
You'll feel the progression.
That's cool.
Now I'd say if somebody, who feels pretty good and just, a little bit sore from running a 5K, you don't need to do it that many times. It's not going to hurt. And, there's, when you get out of the cryotherapy chamber, you just feel good and you sleep better. So, I encourage people to just do it every day or as often as possible, just for those reasons on top of the benefits that you get from a pain management standpoint.
Do you only do cryo, or do you do ice baths too?
These days only do cryo. I've done ice baths, but the maintenance of doing that,
right,
or is just a little bit too much. And realistically, I didn't feel any better doing an ice bath than doing cryotherapy. Cryo's much more comfortable. You warm up a lot quicker, and so I've been doing that. I've also been doing red light therapy as well. I've been in the red light therapy bed 3 times. I'll do that this afternoon after I leave here as well.
How have you been doing any sauna?
Haven't done the sauna yet.
Gotta get in there.
Yeah, I haven't. I think I'm going to hit that up tomorrow morning, actually.
Okay, it's on the docket.
Yeah.
Are you going to do the infrared sauna or just normal
infrared?
Sauna?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, John, do you have any other questions?
Not really, man. It's great to have you in here again, and congratulations on the run.
Yeah, that's huge.
Freaking awesome, man.
Yeah, thanks, guys. I appreciate it. Appreciate you guys having me back again. So,
well, what an inspiring story to go from your car accident in 2018 to 11 marathons in 11 weeks to running a 100-mile ultramarathon. Just incredible.
I'm blessed, man. Blessed beyond what I deserve. God is good. Wouldn't be here without him. I got to give credit to the 100-miler, to my crew. I mean, they were awesome. It was a team event. The one thing that I would say is, if you're doing ultramarathons, find a mentor who's been doing it for a long time. There are so many, just little tips and hacks. And so I'm fortunate to have a good friend, Tony Brown, who's been doing this for a long time. And, so back to the no blisters, he puts Desitin on his feet. He swears by Desitin. So
is that like Vaseline, or what is it?
It's like baby diaper, baby rash type of stuff. But yeah, so I smeared it all over myself, and I've done ultras in the past. Usually have a couple of blisters, not even ultras, even just a marathon or 20-miler, get blisters. But and some of the longer runs, chafing sometimes can be an issue. But yeah, none of that. But that's just an example of like dozens and dozens of little things that I do that I've picked up from him. But my crew was so good, so supportive, they kept me mentally upbeat and having somebody to just talk to, and for somebody to just give up so much time on the weekend and drive out to the middle of nowhere to support somebody, man, that says a lot about somebody to help me out and support. So definitely thank God for the recovery from the injury and give me the strength to do this and whatever comes next.
Absolutely. Matt, where can people find you online, and talk a little bit about iCryo too?
Yeah, so I'll start with iCryo. So it's a recovery and wellness center in Wichita. So we're out on Maze Road in the New Market Square area. We have whole body cryotherapy, infrared saunas, red light therapy, compression, IVs, weight loss services, whole host of other things. You can find us at iCryo.com. Look for the Wichita location, or find us on Facebook or Instagram. Myself personally, I've got a blog that I write. It really started as a recovery. I'm recovering from an injury blog, and to hold myself accountable to getting all my recovery workouts in. But it's kind of evolved over time to more ultra running. But injuredbeast.com. You can look that up and kind of read some of my stories there. But you can also find me on Instagram, injured.beast, or Matt Magnuson on the Facebook.
Awesome. Well, if you guys enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with a friend. It helps us grow. John, where can they find you?
At the John Pete on Instagram. Look me up on LinkedIn too.
Get this man on LinkedIn. I'm at the Jacob OC, and the podcast is at Real Period Conversations. Matt, my final question, looking back on this really cool journey you've been on, what advice would you offer to your 22-year-old self?
To my 22-year-old self. Finish what you started all the time. Well, first of all, get started. Then finish what you started.
That's great advice. Thank you for coming on, Matt.
Thank you.
Thanks, Matt.